Welcome. I'm Tony Bernardo, Dean of the UCLA Anderson School of Management, and I'd like to welcome you to this discussion, Leading with an Adaptive Culture for a Better Future, hosted by the Centers at Anderson in collaboration with HEART at UCLA. Our centers at Anderson act as hubs for leadership insights, faculty research, student and alumni engagement, and service to our communities and society. They operate in such areas as finance, real estate, entrepreneurship, technology, media and entertainment, marketing analytics, and global issues that transcend borders. Today's leadership conversation is the fourth in a series created by our centers collaborating in an effort to share expertise, learnings, and best practices across all disciplines, and to bring greater awareness of the problems and opportunities in the world around us, as well as new paradigms for effective leadership. Today's discussion, as I mentioned, is also in collaboration with HEART at UCLA, the Human Resources Roundtable, which has been a terrific cross-campus partner for UCLA Anderson. HEART is an organization of senior human resources executives from leading corporate, nonprofit, and public companies that is dedicated to the advancement of leadership and human resources management in partnership with distinguished faculty and thought leaders. Business leaders today are being challenged with huge change and uncertainty as they prepare for the future, and that was true even before the pandemic. Across all areas, there are challenges to leadership that require an ability to conceive of fundamentally new solutions, new business models, and new modes of engaging with employees and our communities. Whether that relates to remote workers, the need to create a more inclusive environment, or what can be the often jarring effects on employees of evolving business focus and business models due to COVID-19. A strong company culture has traditionally been one of the most powerful sources of competitive advantage. Bain & Company report that companies that create a winning culture are 3.7 times more likely to be top performers. During this current period of disruption resulting from COVID-19, the economic downturn, and the social justice movement, those companies with a strong culture have been better positioned to rapidly adapt to the new reality. A survey conducted by KPMG of 300 business executives found that more than half, 53%, said culture is one of the most important factors affecting their ability to successfully reemerge or restart their respective businesses following COVID-19 and the economic crisis. Today's discussion is with leaders of Morley Builders, which over its more than 70-year history has significantly expanded its business and moved from a family-owned residential contracting company to become one of the top commercial builders in Southern California. Throughout the company's history, it has preserved the values established by its founder while adapting its culture to meet the changing needs of customers, employees, and the community. I hope you engage in this program and reflect on your own company culture and how, as a leader of the future, you can navigate uncertainty to create strong, agile organizations. Now, I'd like to introduce UCLA Anderson Professor Corinne Bendersky, Faculty Chair of HEART at UCLA, and the moderator of today's program. Corinne?
Thank you, Tony. Welcome, everybody. I'm very pleased to be moderating this panel and incredibly grateful to have the opportunity to talk with Charlie Muttillo, who is the president and CEO of Morley Builders, and Megan Sutton, who is the vice president of human resources, about their adaptive culture. And as Tony said, an organization's culture, which really is the extent to which the members of the organization share beliefs and values that shape how the organization behaves and guides how the members of the organization act out their jobs and interact with each other within the organization. The organization's culture has significantly impacted how companies have responded to the COVID-19 disruption in interactions with all of their stakeholders, including their shareholders, their employees, their customers, and the community more broadly. Beyond the pandemic, we believe that companies with an adaptive culture will be better positioned to navigate future demographic, technological, and economic and environmental disruptions that we're likely to face. So I want to share a little bit of the background. I'm going to just present the bios of Charlie and Megan, who are joining us, and then invite them to answer some questions that we pre-prepared. So Charlie Muttillo has been with Morley for more than 35 years. He's led the company to become a major builder in Southern California and has integrated Morley's purpose and values into every aspect of the company's interactions by focusing leaders on the importance of innovation, collaboration, and integrity. Under his leadership, the company has moved from founder to family owned to 100% employee owned. Charlie graduated from Cal Poly University in San Luis Obispo, and he's served on many, many community and professional boards and organizations, and has joined other Morley management at the UCLA Executive Education Program. Megan Sutton joined the Morley Human Resources team 6 years ago. She leads the Human Resources Department and partners with others throughout the organization to ensure that employees remain aligned with the business strategy and culture that the employee owners value. Megan graduated from La Trobe University in Australia and the UCLA Executive Education Program. We are pleased that Megan is an active member of HEART at UCLA and that Morley Builders is one of our member companies. And thank you, Tony, for introducing HEART to those of you who are not familiar with it. We have really been honored by the opportunity to partner with the centers in bringing this conversation to you. So welcome, Charlie, welcome, Megan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Corinne.
So
Thanks, Corinne.
I'd like to start off with a question about Morley Builders has grown from a post-World War II residential contractor to what is now a prominent 100% employee-owned Southern California builder. Your company is based on the ideals of collaboration, innovation, and trust. Charlie, could you start off in telling us a little bit about how you've adapted your values over time or changed how they're translated to your customers, employees, or the community?
Thanks, Corinne. And on behalf of Megan and I, it's a pleasure and an honor to participate in this session. I really think that's a very important question. I think it's important to distinguish between values and principles, and many companies and business leaders often interchange those terms. Let me give you an example. So the Morley organization has always valued its employees, but the focus has changed over time. When Morley Benjamin started the firm, the company had a handful of employees, and the whole company could fit into one car when they went to lunch. Well, the company clearly valued its employees, but they weren't owners. And when Morley retired in 1984, his ownership stake was partially transferred to the employees. And for the first time, the employees became owners in the company on a minority basis. And this is when we established our ESOP, our employee stock ownership plan. And so there's a psychological shift that happens that you go from an employee to now an employee owner. And when Mark Benjamin, Morley's son, tragically passed in a plane crash in 2013, the company transitioned the ownership, his ownership to the employees. And at that point, we became 100% employee owned. Again, our focus was still on the employees and ownership, but now at a board level and even a management level, we became fiduciaries to the employees. And so that's just an example of how our values towards our employees have changed. But the thing that hasn't are our principles. Morley was built on the overriding principle of integrity of character. And from that, flows honesty, respect for others, ethical behavior, and being profitable without being predatory. And that still drives us today. And we believe that those principles have to be maintained no matter how we may change some of the values or adapt our values. We have to hold those principles true.
Thank you. I love that distinction. I think that's really insightful and helpful to kind of think about culture and how organizations can use that to direct employee behavior or direct their own decision-making, strategic planning. Morley Builders has been honored with multiple industry awards and has built many major buildings in Los Angeles, including several at UCLA, including the Eddie and Lou Wasserman Eye Center, the Luskin Conference Center, and Geffen Hall, just to name a few. Morley Builders also has been perennially recognized as the best place to work in Los Angeles, and its employees describe Morley as a company that feels like family. And as you just described, that's one of the key principles that has been characterized it since its foundation. Charlie, you've been with Morley for more than 30 years. How has the culture influenced your leadership approach? And what programs has Morley instituted to support the company culture and keep it relevant as the workplace has evolved?
Yeah, actually, this year marks my 35th anniversary, so I'm a little older than I look. But our employees are our culture. And if we hire employees that believe in our principles, the culture remains strong. Though that sounds easy, it's probably the biggest challenge that we have as an organization. We're very protective of who we ask to join the Morley family. And for us, it's not a job or a role that we're looking to fill, but we're interested in the long-term relationship. And our expectation is that if we do things correctly, an employee can be with us for their entire career. Now, is that idealistic? Perhaps, but they can grow with us. They can change with us. We've had employees start in one part of the organization and go to different parts of the organization. And so at the same time, they're growing and changing, and we're growing and changing. And that may seem crazy, when the average tenure in our industry is less than 7 years, but we're pushing, nearly almost double that. We're at the 12 or 13 year mark for our tenure. And even, the besieged millennials that are joining our organizations, they're seeing Morley as a place that they could spend their entire career, and not that it's just a stepping stone. So that's the great thing, is that our employees are the first point of, they'll point it out if we get it wrong, and they'll identify someone who's not compatible, and they become the ultimate defenders of our culture. And so, because the employees believe and value the culture, they're always looking for things that will reinforce it. And so, for example, under the COVID, our wellness committee launched a company-wide fitness monitoring challenge. And it's not from the top down. This wasn't an idea that Megan and I came up with, but it's the employees knowing that they're empowered to make decisions that benefit the company, and knowing that, if you have both positive mental health and physical health, they go hand in hand, that the company's going to be better, and that everyone is challenged under these times. So for us, it's really about the people.
Yeah, so it sounds like from allowing for that bottom-up innovation really creates the adaptability in the culture. It's built into your culture because it is so connected to and foundationally built on the people in your organization. So that's how it stays relevant.
Yes, and I think we're fortunate to be in the industry that we're in. We're not a manufacturing company. And so, construction is an ever-evolving industry and challenge. Every project is different. So we're just used to solving problems. And though COVID is another problem that we need to solve.
Thank you. Megan, can I ask you to share a little bit about how you align your corporate culture with your talent strategies, and especially given Charlie's last comment about the importance of attracting and retaining the right kind of people who are both high-performing employees and also those who are going to commit and sustain your culture. What do you think your employees value most, and how does that all reflect in your talent strategy?
Yeah, great question, and a big question with really a lot of components to it. So, I'll sort of do my best to sort of hit some of the highlights for you. The alignment of corporate culture, as Charlie alluded to, really goes back to the fact that, when we've seen our environment shift and change, we haven't necessarily made quick knee-jerk reactions. Often we prefer to take an approach where perhaps we're not the first mover. Perhaps we sit back and we take stock. And, the most important thing is coming back to those guiding principles and values. As Charlie alluded to, one of those things for us is tenure. And people, go through a fairly rigorous process. We are very conscious of being very consistent across our organization, with our talent acquisition practices. And what that might look like is that, no one individual is responsible for making those hiring decisions. It's a very inclusive process where we gather a lot of different data points on candidates who are seeking an opportunity with Morley. And that might include multiple panel interviews with various groups of people. It includes job site walks, behavioral assessments, for cultural compatibility, behavioral compatibility. there are a lot of different things that really go into that. And, at the end of the day, we're really conscientious and focused on making sure that when someone joins the Morley team, that we are welcoming them, setting them up for success, and really partnering with them over the long term. And one of those areas that's really valuable to us, as we've touched on, is the tenure component. And I think we're seeing multi-generational workplaces where perhaps we're being challenged that our expectations might change, that people won't build careers, they won't stay as long. And I think that we're really challenging that because of who we are and the opportunity that we offer and the things that we present in terms of the unique workplace, the family-oriented approach, the respect. I think that's really challenging people that may otherwise have taken 2 or 3 roles, in the course of a 10-year span, to really see the value. And more importantly, I think our people really enjoy the people they work with. Every time we run an engagement survey or we run a poll, the top thing that always comes back about why do you like to work at Morley, it's always back to the people. And I think that's a huge driver. And I think it helps to also have a very healthy culture, certainly a culture that is not stagnant. We're always looking to evolve it, to preserve it. And I really like what Charlie just said about defending our culture. I think that's a really great way to position it. So, in a nutshell, I think, that's it. We look at technical compatibility, we look at cultural compatibility, and the person as a whole, and who we are and where we're going. And we cast a fairly broad net to ensure that we are seeking diverse candidates, because some of the things that we value in that talent space are creative capacity and innovation. And our process appears to be doing a pretty good job of supporting those goals.
That's terrific. And I love how you described the depth of engagement across the organization in each of your hires. And so it makes sense to me, if I'm an employee of Morley who has invested so much and participated so deeply in each hire, why I like the people that I work with so much, because I'm committed to I've influenced the decision to hire the people that I'm going to be most excited to work with. And I love how both of you have really, I think, described very clearly some of the ways in which Morley's cultural adaptability creates an environment that enables employees to grow and learn and develop themselves and keeps the culture relevant. And that has significant benefits in terms of reduced turnover, even among millennials, as you said, Charlie, who are notoriously less likely to stay at organizations for a long time. And I think that really speaks to, if you feel like you're part of something that matters and that you have opportunities to grow throughout your careers, then that's going to satisfy people regardless of what generation.
That's a great point in terms of what if you feel that you make a difference, that it does matter. And I millennials or baby boomers, I believe we all want to feel that we're making a difference and that what we're doing matters not only to the organization, but hopefully beyond that. And that's one of the things that we strive for. And it's very difficult to do.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, that's terrific. And that's a nice segue to my next question, which is really focusing on what's happened with the onset of COVID-19 and the current social justice movement. I mean, many companies have been rethinking their culture and rethinking their employee value proposition during these times and going forward. I'd like to hear from both of you how the events of this year impacted Morley's culture and your employee programs.
Did something happen this year? What was that?
I mean, except the apocalypse?
Yeah, except the apocalypse. Well, this has been a trying year for everyone, from the individuals to the nation to the world. For us as a construction company, we've been deemed an essential service. So we had the good fortune of needing to still construct buildings, including buildings much needed like low-income housing that we're involved with. So our employees, our company, there's a sense of obligation not only to our clients and the community, but we also have an obligation to keep our employees safe. How do we do that? I'd mentioned the remote working, but it is trying. Before the session started, I had remarked we had a Morley Town Hall event last week, and we had a polling question where we asked our employees, how has COVID-19 impacted their lives vis-a increased stress, separation from family, and 40% of our employees noted that they did feel significantly impacted. And for those reasons, wearing a face mask and social distancing, those were the easy parts of it. But the separation, as Megan mentioned, we spent a lot of time together at work, especially our job site teams. They function as a little family unit on the job sites. So it's been difficult. Everyone, wants to return to normal, but we know that there's more hurdles to overcome, and the future will probably not be a replica of the old normal. What hasn't changed is that we care. We're here to help our employees. We were able to get N95 masks that we're able to donate to the communities, including the UCLA Medical Center for a while. We've implemented flexible work schedules, remote working, and we continue to modify and react to our employee needs. We can't accomplish everything, but we definitely want to hear and be sympathetic. And then, on the entire diversity, we're re-looking at all of that as an organization, and we acknowledge that we need, to be successful in the future, though we believe we've done a good job at being diverse, we need to do an even better job and more inclusionary.
Thank you. Megan, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. And actually, as I heard your question, it was interesting because it really filled me with a lot of positive responses. And I think, anytime individuals or groups find themselves in a crisis or, under duress, I think you see magical things happen with people. People become very creative. They adapt and pivot in ways that you might not have previously predicted or actually even been able to witness. And I think, as we look at our priorities, especially for, say, my team, obviously heavily focused on the employee population, we're looking at things like communication, connectivity, culture preservation and assimilation for anyone who is joining during, this more challenging time frame. And I think as much as anything for us, without being too black and white, we've really put our arms around and embraced a business as usual approach to provide as much normalcy. And I think the other thing is that in many ways, this has given us back time. People have become very resourceful using self-service portals and technology. It really forced that. And so people who were dragging their feet have had to run toward that, embrace it, and get on board very quickly. What that means, I think, for a lot of people in the human resources space is we have more time to look at some of those key project driven pieces that we really want to deliver for the business. But I think for my team, we've had the opportunity to connect with our employees in a way that we wouldn't have previously been able to do. We've been very conscientious about getting out on the job site. We went ahead with our summer internship program when many of our competitors didn't. And obviously the priority before doing that was to make sure that we could offer a health and safe environment and opportunity for those individuals. And I think we've been very thankful and the feedback has been great. And we're so glad that we did. Sometimes it isn't about pivoting and doing something different. It really is about doing things like going through your performance management cycle. Perhaps it's looking at promotion opportunities, continuing to source talent and make sure there's a pipeline. So, we've really had an opportunity, I think, to do a lot of great things. Perhaps some of those are on the more softer tactile side. But again, opportunities, in the nooks and crannies of a challenging time, I think have added a lot of value and really strengthened the connection of our people in other ways.
Oh, I love that. It makes me think about how you're both very intentional and mindful about your company culture, sustaining and defending and reinforcing the aspects of your company culture that that provides stability, and they provide security in the context of, in an environment that feels very, very uncertain and unstable and frightening in many ways. And that seems to have been a source of ongoing employee value for you. And also recognizing that during times of crisis, we have opportunities and necessities for innovation and creativity that you don't necessarily even imagine when you're not faced by the necessity introduced by the crisis we're facing today. And it's wonderful to hear from both of you about how your company has sort of been open to embracing innovations today, and sounds like you're considering carrying some of those forward into the future. And Charlie, can I pop that back to you and ask you, was there any key things that have come out as adaptations to the current crisis that you feel have really been business improvements that you would carry into the future after we're in the post-pandemic, post-apocalyptic future, if such a thing ever comes about?
Yes, we've looked to our employees to help us solve, challenges. And so in the middle of all of this, we have both management, which are non-union employees, but we have many tradesmen. Currently we have over 500 union tradesmen on our direct payroll. Prior to COVID-19, we were cutting weekly checks to all those employees. Well, we said, and we've talked for years about trying to get them onto a automated, ACH type payment system, and there are union challenges with that, all of that. But our payroll department did a just great job, and they said, we can make this work. And we polled the employees, are you willing to try, because you can't force someone to do that. But we have over 98% of our union tradesmen now on ACH payroll, and it's been great. And there's many other distinctions that we've been able to carry on. I want to go back to, I think Megan downplayed something as simple as our internships. We committed to over half a dozen internships for this summer. And when COVID hit, every university that we had made those commitments to were calling us saying, are you going to honor those? Because no one else is honoring them. And it didn't even dawn on us that we wouldn't honor those commitments. And in terms of, it's a value to the company to be able to experience those interns, but more importantly, it's a value to the interns to say, this is an industry that you're getting into. Make sure you really are passionate about it. And we didn't think twice about making a short-term decision at the peril of the long-term. And that's what, I enjoy so much about our organization. And maybe we have the ability or the fortitude to do that, and others may not. But that's what makes, defending that culture so much easier.
Yeah, I want to highlight what you just said about not sacrificing the long term with the decisions you make in the short term, how important that is. I'm going to ask you one more question, if I may, and then we'll open up our Slido portal. Portal, I think, was the word that I was missing before. So my last question to you is that continuing to think about the future, the construction industry will be influenced by a great deal of changes, including a significant amount of new environmental regulations, sustainability initiatives, also significant changes in digital technology that influence construction and urban planning. And we were talking with Dean Bernardo at the beginning before we opened to the rest of the participants here today about the massive changes in the commercial construction space. I would love to hear what you think some of the key drivers are that will prepare Morley for the future and continue to make Morley a leader in the industry. And in particular, can you talk about how you might see your culture adapting to meet the demands of the future?
Well, construction is an ever-evolving profession, though some of the materials that we use may be as old as time. they are, we're not a manufacturing process. So we are solving challenges every day. And our activities are impacted by unforeseen conditions, be it a payment challenge or an insurance challenge or just a construction industry challenge. It's fast paced. It's not for the faint of heart. And I don't mean to make this sound like a cliche, but our people are going to be the drivers that help us prepare for that future. And, the employee ownership model has some inherent difficulties and challenges, but if you plan for it, it could be a sustainable structure. And our goal is to maintain that sustainability and perpetuity in doing that. So, we are going to continue to look to our employees. For instance, though, we recognize that technology is going to play a big part. So at this time, while the future is a little cloudier, maybe a little smokier here in Southern California than it was previously, but we're investing in on October 1st. We're making a significant seven-figure commitment to implement a new construction management software program for us. 2 years ago, we implemented a new ERP system. So we recognize that we need to be, as Megan said, perhaps not first to the table with new technology, but we need to be close to the cutting edge and making sure that we're providing the tools that our employees need so that they can be more efficient as they go forward, and things will change. It's exciting when you think of the possibilities of how designs are going to change. What will the office buildings of the future look like? Though there's talk, that everyone's going to go to the suburbs, but look, the high-rise buildings at some point will come back. There will be new technologies that will make the air within those buildings much safer to be in, and I think that'll be a good thing for the organization and the industry.
Thank you. I want to open it up to Slido, but I have one more question that's more of a personal question for you as the leader of this organization now, and given your long history with it, your long tenure with it. What do you think of as in terms of your legacy? What is your goal for your legacy impact on Morley Builders?
I really, I don't think, my legacy will be what the employees will make of that, but my goal is to develop a thriving and diverse leadership team and to position Morley so that we can achieve even greater successes in the future and maintain our 100% employee ownership model. As the industry and the competitors change, we're going to need to be nimble to keep pace, and ultimately we need to be smarter in what we do. And hopefully we will achieve that, and future leaders of the company will do even greater things, and that could be a piece of the legacy.
Fantastic. Megan, do you have anything you'd like to add before we open up to the Slido questions?
No, look, I think, this is just a really unique organization to be a part of. And, I think it's always a joy to be part of a conversation like this and have an opportunity to talk about who we are and what we do.
Well, terrific. There's actually a question on Slido that connects to what we've been talking about. So let me start with that one. It's for Charlie. When you assumed your role 30 years ago, what were the top 3 things about Morley's culture that you did not want to change, and why?
I stumbled into the Morley organization. I was at the time a sophomore in college. I realized that at some point I should probably get some experience interviewing, and I signed up for the first construction company that was coming on campus to interview, and it happened to be Morley. And I found a great company that cared a lot about, they were transitioning then from being kind of the small specialty builder into a larger, and they were just looking for professionals. And I had a chance to do an internship, and that's part of my reason for valuing internships. And I got to see an organization that really cared. And more importantly, I had a chance to meet with other interns that were in diverse industries and hear how they hated their internships. And I absolutely loved mine. And what I quickly learned, it's companies are about their people. And I really connected and felt like I could come back to work for Morley and be a part of working hand in hand with the colleagues that I had an opportunity to meet during that internship. And so I think in the values there, the question was, it was not wanting to change that, to know that I had the ability. Morley Benjamin at that time was still part of the organization, though he was in a transition to retirement. I had a chance to just walk into his office and say hello. It wasn't that I had to go through a secretary to get to him.
So another question we have here is, for those employees that are virtual or working remotely, how do you maintain a sense of community and also keep them motivated and their morale high?
Well, our department leaders are having, if not daily, definitely weekly check-ins. And it is a challenge to stay connected. It's not like you just walk down the hall and go to someone's office or have a casual conversation, but it's our leadership team has also been just following up with individuals and not asking about business related, but just the simple question, how are you doing? And caring. And Megan and her team have done a great job of reminding all of us about the importance of all the touch points.
The employee-centric focus of your organization is incredibly clear in every answer each of you have given to every question we've asked. That's sort of been the heart of it. And as you were just speaking for this time, and thought that have come to my mind a few times and I haven't articulated it yet. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about kind of how the role of the employee ownership and the role of the corporate culture. I mean, they obviously work together to reinforce this employee-centric theme and foundation. But I'm wondering, for people who are on our call today who are not part of employee-owned organizations, do you think that what aspects of what you've been talking about do you think translate outside of that fiduciary arrangement, and how much is really critical to the fact that this is an employee-owned organization?
Corinne, it's a mindset. And so when we became 100% employee-owned, we actually had to go through an education process. And the example I gave to our leadership team is, I said, because we're 100% employee-owned, it does not mean that we're going to vote on everything. We're not going to vote on the toilet paper that we put in the restrooms. We've been, someone in our organization has been deciding what toilet paper to put in the restrooms, and we're going to trust that individual continues to do that good job. And we're going to continue to trust every other individual that they're going to carry out their responsibilities, be it if they're working in the human resources department or the payroll or risk management or construction operations. And so it was more understanding that now if we see something wrong, it does impact all of us. And we have a duty to each other to say, and that's where we become the defenders of the culture going forward. But there was an education process that goes into all of that.
And I imagine that sense of trusting people to do their jobs and be responsible, but also promoting a shared obligation and shared commitment to defending the culture and acting when things are not going in a desirable fashion, that generalizes beyond an employee-owned organization. The employee ownership probably reinforces it, but it is there are certainly many examples of other organizations
Absolutely.
with cultures that have that kind of core. And to me, that sounds like the thing that really contributes to your adaptability and resilience more than anything else. So if I may, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, very, very much so.
I'm going to pull up another question from Slido. How do you manage to instill and promote collaboration, group thinking, and innovation in an online reality?
Well, for our, we're kind of a bifurcated online reality. So as Megan said, from the, call it the corporate management side, the majority are working remotely, but our job site teams, and think of the best way to think of them as small little business units. They are on site, still working out of trailers, or they're socially distanced. And in some cases, we are rotating staff members where some are working from home 2 or 3 days a week, and then rotating out because of the space limitations on a job site. But that is a challenge. And as Megan said, there's lots of touch points that you need to be, that you have to force and be conscientious of. It just doesn't happen on its own. And we've talked about the challenge of onboarding, for new hires. How do you get, it's similar to the interns, but how do you begin to transmit the sense of culture if you don't have an opportunity, if you're only doing it through Zoom meetings? And that is difficult to do. And you have to, I think, even double and triple the efforts that you would if you were doing it in person.
Yeah, it's you described what is essentially an open door policy in your organization, and that's difficult to do when you actually have to both agree to show up at a particular Zoom site at the same time, right? So it sounds like communication is really, really essential to make this work.
Yes.
Yeah. Megan, did you want to add to that?
No, I think that was a fairly good sort of summary of that, and I would concur. I think we have been very glued to communicating, and maybe just a couple of other thoughts around that is, where we talk about the challenges of induction. We've had just such a fun time here being able to work on some really creative things that we may not have tackled as immediately as we have. And, one of those is, how do we make that experience of who we are and connecting with us tangible if we're doing it in a virtual, environment? And so one of the things that we've had a blast doing this summer is that we partnered with a videographer, and we decided, if we can't bring people to our job sites, let's take the job site tours out to them virtually. So, obviously there's a lot of activity. Career fairs are virtual on campus now. So we're starting to see, the fall career fairs opening up. So we basically made, some really high caliber videos that really do a great job, I feel, of showcasing who we are and reaching people. And I think the other thing is, we've got to work, to Charlie's point, probably twice as hard, if not more, to stay visible, to stay relevant, and to make sure our brand is out there, to reach talent. So there's that as well.
Yeah, and that brings us to another question. How do you and your leadership team stay motivated and avoid burnout during the pandemic?
Well, we're, I don't want to say we're a crisis industry, but we're very much accustomed to solving challenges. We care a lot about the buildings that we construct. We care about our employees. We view our purpose as building a better future, and that helps drive us. And it's really about perseverance. Our projects are typically 12 to 24 months in length. And there is that burnout, but we're always looking out for each other. Go take that break. It's a little harder now. You can't just go on vacation. But we've told employees, you need to take a day off. You just need to stay home and go for a walk or not think about work. But that's part of, as Megan said, it's finding different ways, touch points, to understand what the needs are and be caring of them.
I keep forgetting to turn on. I think that takes us to one last question, which I think is a wonderful way to end this conversation. As president of a major complex company, do you have any advice for future leaders?
Wow, that's a great question. I think it's really important to be passionate about the business that you're in. And for me, being president is not a prize. I view it as a duty and obligation to the employees, to our clients, to do the best that I can to help inspire and guide the organization so that they can do the best that they can and be inspired going down. So it's a great question. I wish I had a better answer, but I think it's just really important to be passionate about the overall role and the industry that you're in.
And I think what comes across very clearly to all of us who've been listening to you and to Megan is your sincerity and authenticity. And that when you talk about your employees and the centrality of them and everything that you do, the focus on their well-being, the concern that you have for their participation in the success of the company and the culture of the company and the financial outcomes of the company, that's authentic, that you're not just giving lip service to it, you mean it. And I think if there's one lesson that I would take away and that I would encourage whoever asked that question and those of us whose ears perked up when we heard it and thought, that's a great question, I want to know the answer, is that as you describe passion and also authentic and sincere commitment to your stakeholders, including your employees, your customers, your shareholders, and the communities that you're involved in. And I think that has given me, and I hope the rest of us, some really helpful insight into the ways in which your culture has served as a resource that has enabled Morley Builders to adapt throughout its history, not only to major changes in the industry you're competing in, but also organization, the form of the organization that you are and have become and will be in the future. And it's that commitment and engagement among the employees that make the culture what it is and that enable it to be so adaptable in ways that will be resilient, have been and will continue to be resilient to changes going forward. I just open this up, invite you to share any last thoughts with us. And I'll ask you and also Megan to share any last thoughts.
I just want to thank you, UCLA, and the HEART program. It really is an honor to be able to talk amongst all of us and all the distinguished panelists and participants in this. And thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you for the opportunity to share your thoughts with us. Megan, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, Corinne, thank you. Perhaps before just wrapping up on this end, I think the question posed to Charlie about, advice for future leaders. And I think when we think about leadership and management careers, we're so often focused on the operational component and the technical prowess and capacity of the individual. And I would challenge everyone out there not to forget about honing your skills when it comes to people leadership, people management, because you put those two things together and you have an organization which has strong technical operators and those that are savvy in the operations space, as well as empathetic leaders who are engaged and understand people management practices. I think you have a really winning combination when you get into that space.
Oh, that's terrific. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Appreciate your time.
And for those of you who are learning about HEART for the first time through this opportunity for us to collaborate with the centers at UCLA, I hope this has given you a flavor for the kind of conversations and thought leadership that we engage in. We're very much about bringing together the cutting edge practice and cutting edge scholarship on organizations, leadership, and human resources management in ways that translate into learnings for our members. And that's what we're going to be doing with our members privately in the phase 2 for HEART. For the rest of you, thank you so much for joining us this morning for the our partners in the UCLA centers, thank you for the opportunity to work with you in putting together this session. And for Dean Bernardo, thank you for your introduction and engagement with us. And I'm going to turn over the mic and offer others how to close this.
This was a fascinating conversation. I really want to thank Charlie and Megan for joining us. And this is a really wonderful series to bring into our entire UCLA Anderson community. Thank you so much for participating.